What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Dynasty Depot. It's been a long time coming. Here is episode 2 of these mock drafts. The loading dock, I think is what we're calling it, right?
I believe that's what we were going with. Correct.
I don't know. The title will be there. It'd be pretty funny if it's not loading
Yeah,
dock. It
yeah.
might not be
If we
loading
got
dock.
the exact one.
Yeah, that'd be a pretty good bit. But welcome to Dynasty Depot, guys, where defense matters. We have an offensive rookie draft already on the channel. But today is where we start diving into the defensive side of the ball. Today we got our defensive analyst, Wyatt, and we are going to go through a 10-man, 3-round mock draft with defense and offensive rookies. So we are looking at dynasty perspective of a league that is doing a rookie draft in 2024. What are you excited for today, Wyatt?
I'm really excited to get into the receivers. No, all serious, the receivers in this class are, I think, very exciting prospects. There's a few that have the potential to really be entertaining almost immediately on the teams that they have gone to, and we have a few that are going to be longer term projects to look forward to as well.
Yeah, personally, Luke McCaffrey is my number one, but we'll see how it all plays out. All right.
Those
I am
McCaffrey
personally,
genes,
dude. That's what I'm saying, man. You can't underestimate it.
you can't write that out.
My personal favorite. I think that there is an absolute ton of defensive line talent to bolster your rosters, especially in defensive flex positions, your IDP positions. Um, Yeah, I mean, I've said it before. I think the defensive line and slot guys, your nickel corners are your money makers on defense, and I think that there's a lot of them in this draft. So I'm excited to jump into it. Yeah, man, this is our first defensive mock draft, and I think we should just jump right into it. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's crack it.
So, so the way that we're doing is I am going to take the 9th pick. So I went towards the end. What pick do you want?
As far as what we are like, what you would take like it at that like spot.
Yeah, like if you had to redraft, we're using a mock draft of our 20-man league. So we're gonna cut it down into 10. Do you want? So you just pick 1 through 10. Which spot you want?
hmm
Just not 9th. I'm taking 9.
Well, I think the when you really consider it, the big three I feel like a bit are a bit interchangeable. I'm going to take four just because I think that's an interesting position to be sitting at this year.
Cool. So I think with that, let's crack right into it,
Nice.
and let's start with this. Let's debate this. Neither of us are going one of one. Who's your one of
hmm
one? I'm just going to put it. You said the three are kind of interchangeable. You have Marvin Harrison, Caleb Williams, and Malik Neighbors. In that order, go 1-1, 1-2, 1-3. Give me your thoughts on that.
hmm There are going to be so many factors, and unfortunately, probably when you consider a dynasty, I really like Malik Neighbors. He holds a lot of potential. He has, from literally everything I've seen, both in college and what we've seen so far in the preseason, as well as any little camp teasers, he looks nigh unguardable. He is really just intuitive with getting behind defenders' blind spots. He is manipulating defenses pretty well already, and he's physically one of the most gifted players in this draft class. But he is more than likely going to be productively capped by Daniel Jones. The quarterback situation in New York is relatively and unfortunately pretty much figured out, and they're looking at. I mean, Daniel, he got paid. They really have to utilize him, and he has to be something for them. So you have to rule him out at least for this first year of being a top contributor, to the point that he stands out beyond being a rookie. Um, Caleb Williams has honestly looked so far pretty much lights out in the preseason. He's looked composed. He has made a few that one deep ball to Rome was actually beautiful. Um, and Marvin Harrison has been relatively quiet, which I'm not sure how to interpret because he had a few stints like that in college where after he just looked dominant. So it's kind of a mixed bag there.
All right. The one person I do not agree in the top three is Caleb Williams.
Mhm.
I think when you talk about, and this is just strictly off of my analysis of the QB class this year, and I talked about this in the offensive side of the ball. My quarterback rankings is JJ 1, Drake 2, Jaden 3, 4 is Bo, 5 is Caleb, 6 is Penix. I talked about you have Rattler in there. I think Rattler is going to be the next um I'm blanking. The Riddler,
I'm not
the Falcons.
I'm not going to
The
lie to you.
Riddler.
The storyline as well as the playing style, Desmond Ritter and what what is Steven Rattler? Is that his name? It's rare that
Dude,
I
I
just
gotta
can't
I
remember
gotta
a
look
name at
this
all.
up.
They are interchangeable in my brain. They are literally interchangeable in my brain, and I haven't been able to get around that fact. And I'm so glad that somebody else has just been bothered by this because this like thought
Spencer
has been
Rattler.
Spencer Rattler. This thought has been plaguing me for like a half a year, and I just haven't felt comfortable sharing this actual like weight on my shoulder.
Well, there you go. I put it out on the internet first, so good
So
copyright
now
right
it's
there,
okay that
right?
now it's okay that I said it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the one that said Will Levis is going to be in a gold jacket, and guess what? I still stand by that. So
Oh yeah, the
I
Mayo
will
Man
go
himself.
I will go with that. I don't know. Maybe the comparison to Levis this year is Drake May, and maybe May will not end up on TMZ this year, and he'll have a better career. So let's see what happens there.
We'll see what
Um,
happens.
so my tier one, when we're talking about the first three of Marvin Harrison, Caleb Williams, and Malik Neighbors that went in our draft, my tier
Mhm.
one in this draft, when you start with the defensive side of the ball, I think you are looking at three players on each side of the ball that could go one of one, that could change the dynamic of your roster. You can lock up the guy on the line, or you can lock up the guy with the wide receiver or your long term QB. So I think this strictly depends on your team's needs, but my tier
Mhm.
one, and when I say tier one, these are all interchangeable. I think all of these guys could go one of one. I think the QB in this tier is going to be lower on the tier, but I think if you took them 1-1, I would not be mad. So my top six that could go one of one, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors are both there. Going out of the draft, I said Roma Doomsday and Malik Neighbors are the most talented. Roma Doomsday was my favorite receiver out of the draft. Now that we've seen some film, we've seen some gameplay, Rome is still up there, but Malik Neighbors is the most talented wide receiver. Highest ceiling,
He's the most
lowest floor.
talented receiver, I think, in this draft.
And then the others, the QB I have is Jaden Daniels. Because when
Yeah,
you look
I
at the history of that, and we talked about this in the offensive draft, is you have Cliff Kingsbury in there. I thought he was in
who
Chicago. He's
hmm
in Washington, who is notoriously good with this type of dynamic quarterback and coaching this kind of quarterback. That Jaden Daniels has everything in his power to have a successful fantasy career and
fantasy
professional
career.
career.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels has looked like he's let's pay attention to how he's looked for the franchise itself. And he has looked very, they're trying to keep things calm for the moment because there was a lot of buzz that came out of Washington. And then it all sort of came crashing down as like their offense, like somehow everything just seemed to there was just a leak. There was a leak in the pot and nothing was going in a good direction. But Jaden Daniels has looked very positive for them. and the dual threat like capabilities that he offers are a really, really considerably high upside from a fantasy perspective.
Hold on, I'm gonna cut this out. Do you want to do a mock
Mhm.
draft? Actually, no. Let's just keep this. This is fine. The So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I agree. I agree. The upside of that is great. And then I have three defensive linemen. Specifically, one is going to rank over the others, specifically
Hmm.
because he's a defensive lineman and linebacker with Dallas Turner. But I have
I
Dallas
think
Turner,
Dallas
Chop
Turner
Rod.
is in a great spot, dude. Dallas Turner has looked both really good, and going to be, he's just poised to be a solid contributor on that team, man.
No, I completely agree. And then I have Chop Robinson and
Mhm.
Latu Latu.
See, I 100% agree with Chop. The only reason I'd be a little bit hesitant this year with Chop Robinson, why I might not bite quite as high as someone like Dallas Turner, is because of just how much like linebacker and pass rush depth the Dolphins have. They have made a few um a few off-season acquisitions that have been relatively significant. I know Jordan Brooks is one of them who offers more or less some coverage ability as well as like run stopping, but he gets behind the line sometimes. But they have a lot in Miami from Jalen Phillips, who they're probably going to be resting a fair bit until things get serious. They've got a few that are kind of coming off of an injury, so Chop Robinson is 100% going to be getting reps and getting in the mix, but we're yet to see how. Whereas like Dallas Turner is probably going to be in there a lot, man. Dallas Turner is going to be in there a lot, and uh, I'm really high on Chop Robinson's upside. Out of those three, far and away, Lateo Latu is probably my least favorite. He's honestly down the board, even beyond like a few of the other people in like the second tier for me of pass rushers in this class.
See, I put him there. A, his film's amazing. And Indy just has a knack for these young defensive linemen scoring. Their front
Yeah,
seven always scores.
it is a very good posit.
So, but that's mine. So in our mock draft, we had Marvin Harrison, Caleb Williams, Malik Neighbors. That's our thoughts. So you're sitting at the four. Who are you choosing?
100% like going out of like what happened with ours. Um, Jaden Daniels going as late as he did, kind of with like what we were looking at. What did he go? One, two, three, four, five, six, seven,
He went
eight.
eight.
Was
He went
pretty
one
was
eight.
pretty was pretty late for the second overall pick. Now, of course, there's a lot of team needs to consider in fantasy draft, but when we were looking at like at ours, for example, we were surprised by some of the stuff that was going on in there early. And Jaden Daniels, you could absolutely take him fourth and be 100% happy about it, but I wouldn't be surprised if every so often he does go within those top three. Other than that, Roma Dunze falling pretty far as well, is another great pick. Brock Bowers, if you're considering a dynasty, is probably going to be up there for you as well if you're in need of a tight end. But not in a good situation as of this year. Kind of been kind of been a bit unsure of that
He's got
going into this
Minshew
year.
mania down there in
Dude,
Las Vegas now.
Minshew Mania might honestly possibly be a saving grace in comparison to what was going on prior.
When I heard that, Brock Bowers is not very high on my list, but after I heard that, Brock Bowers went up to tier two. He was tier three for
And
me. He is in my second tier now. High second tier. He's right behind Roma Doomsday.
he's kind of to me like teetering on that side. I think he has very high upside in the future. Uh, that's the only reason that if you don't really have anything else that you're like, if you're feeling a little bit unsure of where to pick, that's a good spot to take somebody like that to hang on to for the future. A lot of people were concerned about his run blocking ability. Even I was concerned about it because watching a lot of like the film that I had been shown was it was all, passing highlights, and I was just like, that's in the NFL, you're going to need to be able to at least threaten that so that, you're not just coming out and like in passing only sets where I think it was you, Voj, who was just like, no, he's really not just a passing tight end. He is a little bit simplistic at times with some of his like blocking techniques, but it absolutely gets the job done for him not being like an overwhelmingly physically, you know, uh like dominating tight end like prospect. He's not going to overpower you, but he's absolutely going to get the job done in that regard too.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. So are you going Brock Bowers at the 4?
I mean, I wouldn't be over like I
Are
wouldn't
you
be
going you
upset
going
about it.
JD?
If you can grab Jaden Daniels at 4, that's absolutely worth it.
So
That's
you would draft JD at 4? That's
if
who
your
you're picking?
choice was if Jaden Daniels is on the board at 4, that's who you take.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with that. So we're looking at Marvin, Caleb, Neighbors, Jaden. I don't disagree. I'm gonna give it a second for my dogs to chill out because I think my mom and dad just got home.
Yeah,
You know what? No, comedic. We're keeping this all in.
we're keeping
All
this
right.
in. It's fine.
So I think that Caleb Williams is questionable. I talked about that in my offensive breakdown, the offensive rookie draft. I'm not going to get into it here. Just know that I'm a Caleb Williams hater, and this
I
will be on record once Caleb Williams flunks and becomes the next failure of a Chicago QB.
Okay. Well, I won't hesitate to say that it's quite risky, but that man has looked absolutely like unbelievable every so often in preseason. They're
That's
not trying to
why.
get too
That's why.
crazy, but
That's
I
why
will
I have
say a
no
lot of it,
faith in him.
yeah, that is certainly,
There's no
you do have to
fundamentals. You're
consider,
holding the ball 7 seconds in basic coverage.
well, we shall see. I'm just saying, Voj, the CJ Stroud take.
CJ Stroud's going to have a fall off year. Will Levis is going to be good. All right, you got me on a tangent. We're not getting on a tangent. Caleb Williams is going to be a bust. You taking it at second is a waste of a pick, but most of these are going to be wasted picks anyways. So Jaden Daniels going at 4 is fine. I think at 5, 6, we talked about this. This happened in our draft 4, 5, but Jaden Daniels wasn't taken. I like the 4, the 5, and 6, sorry, to be Keon Coleman and Lad McConkey. Um, that's, I can understand. Roma Doomsday's still on it, and Aiden Mitchell is still up there. If I'm
Yeah,
going off of how this mock draft goes, up until my picks, I picked 9. Keon Coleman and Lad McConkey are going to go 5 and 6. Those are both similar situations. I talked in the offensive breakdown of both are in a uncompetitive wide receiver room with quarterbacks
hmm
that can sling the ball. I have McConkey slightly over Coleman, but that's strictly because McConkey has a quarterback that will sling it more often than Buffalo with Josh Allen rushing.
yep, absolutely.
Uh, of Then at 7 goes Dallas Turner, and then 9. Sorry, 7 goes Dallas Turner, and then 8 goes Xavier Worthy. So I am
hmm
sitting at the 1-9, which is where I drafted in our 20 man. I had Roma Doomsday fall to me. I do think that Roma Doomsday should have been picking at the 5 or 6. I think 5 should have
Yeah,
been Dallas Turner. I think Rome is better than Coleman and McConkey when you look at a dynasty perspective of a long-term
absolutely.
future. Because he
I'm in
has Keenan
agreement.
Allen, which gained 20 pounds. This dude is gonna be the wide receiver 2 by the end of the year. And
I mean,
as much he's gonna be the wide receiver 1 in Chicago one day. You know.
he he honestly could
So
be
I do
posing
like
a
the Roma
threat
Doomsday.
already. I can't lie. I think he has looked
Yeah.
once again when we talk about receivers with intuition, right? Somebody who maybe not purposefully, but seems to have an intuitive feel for how to read defenses and navigate to space. He has already shown that he can create separation from what would otherwise be relatively like what would otherwise be covered. It's something that you can't really teach, and that kind of instinct as a deep threat oriented receiver mainly is pretty much irreplaceable. So he only has more to learn.
I agree. I can't disagree.
I've liked what I've seen so
So
far, which I did before. I will say this right now. If you haven't watched those two games um last year, uh both the first game as well as the rematch between Washington and University of Washington and University of Oregon, you would you would not be surprised why those some of those prospects were touted as highly as they were.
they were touted highly, but you know who surprisingly was touted highly out of college? That I was not on this train at all until
Let's
probably
hear
three
it.
quarters through the college football season. Is I
Okay.
was anti-Texas. I thought every aspect
Uh-huh.
coming out of Texas, every
Uh-huh.
prospect was trash. I didn't believe them. I didn't think that this school would be able to translate.
I want to
And
have it on
I
record.
think
I want to no, Voj. You gotta let me have this one. I want to have it on record that I was that I have been talking about it for a long time between relatively close friends about with only a few people about how the skill positions at Texas made what was his name? The quarterback that's staying there another
Quentin
year?
Ewers,
Who cares? They made him look like a god. They made him look unreal. And those a lot of those people are going to be solid contributors in the NFL.
that being said, you have the Texas going the next two picks. So at
Yeah, quite
110, you got
literally.
Jonathan Brooks, which I don't agree at taking 10. I think that there's a lot of
Definitely
talent still on
no.
the board,
Hmm.
especially for an injured running back. He has the talent, but when you have
Don't
it, I
get me
think it's an
wrong, he
ACL.
could be a powerhouse later on, but that's you're sacrificing
Running
so
backs,
much there.
running backs that come off of an ACL injury. He's young, I
Is
get it,
already
and
a
you
little,
do see
yeah.
it. You see Brees Hall came back stunningly,
Hmm.
but like I don't like the Jonathan Brooks at 10 where this mock draft had it. This isn't even a mock draft where this draft had it. When you have Mitchell on the board, you have Bowers on the board, you have my guy JJ McCarthy on the board.
Okay.
You have Ricky Pearsall, you have Bo Nix, you still have Chop
Uh-huh.
Robinson and Latu on my tier one list. I think that this is a reach grabbing Jonathan Brooks at 10. I understand the pick, but I am not going to agree with this pick.
I can't either. As
And
much as
then
as
at
much as I like him.
2-1, we have yeah. I think this next pick is much more in line with AD Mitchell going at 2-1. Brock Bowers at 2-2 is an absolute steal in my
That's a
opinion.
steal. That is a steal.
The one thing to note at this time is that we are going to hit 1-3 with JJ McCarthy being drafted. We're hitting the
It's
1-3
is it time that we talk about
with
JJ McCarthy?
let me finish this thought real quick.
Let's let's
So we're
let's
hitting the
let's
1-3. We're hitting the 1-3 with JJ. Next pick is going to be Wyatt. But I would like to note that we are 13 picks in this draft, and the only defensive guy off the board is Dallas Turner, which is going to be an absolute monster, absolute league record. But there is so much talent that is being passed on. And when you have a league that scores sacks as much as our league does, which I strongly suggest every league to increase sack points, to that's the ultimate thing you can do on defense besides score. That stops a drive. That's your whole goal. On offense, your goal is to score a touchdown. Your goal is to get points. On defense, your goal is to stall a drive. And what better way to stall a drive than a sack? Yes, it's not going to be the end all be all most times. Third down sacks, yeah. But like sacks are the cream of the crop when it comes to defense. That and interceptions, which both should be rated high. Um IMO. But yeah, let's go JJ McCarthy. I want to hear Wyatt's take on this. So in our actual draft, Wyatt did draft JJ McCarthy
And
at 113, which
oh
I will
yeah,
be the first to say that I will still defend this pick, and
I
I
would
still think
still
that this
defend the
is an
pick.
absolute steal, but I want to hear your thoughts on it.
But once again, from a dynasty perspective, still a good pick. You have to be a little bit upset. He underwent past tense already. You know, uh, basically the worst case scenario surgery for the injury that like occurred. Um, but from a long-term health perspective, it's probably going to be more beneficial than having to do a trim, which would more than likely end up putting off the problem, might resurface. You don't really know. Um, but man, if you're not in a dynasty, that I hope you did not draft him for this for this year already, because that is tough.
I agree. I think JJ, when it looks at film, and
He
even with this
looked
knee surgery,
he
you have
looked
to remember.
great.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah,
No, he when we did see him, he looked great. He started off actually like pretty poorly, but then recovered very well, which is a lot that you want to see from someone who more than likely is going to have to get used to the pacing that is going to be going on in the NFL. Um, so a lot left to be determined there, especially from a dynasty perspective. We will see.
yeah. I mean, he's still my highly rated. I would like to put 2 years in a row that my highly rated quarterback out of the draft got a season-ending injury. Last year was Anthony Richardson. This year it was JJ
Yep.
McCarthy. I would also like to say that my second QB in the draft had a stellar performance last year, and that my second QB in this draft class is Drake May. So does history repeat itself, and does New England find his
Their
next
guy.
Tom Brady?
I
Thought
Yeah,
is
because
no, he's not Tom Brady, but I think he's going to have a good season.
yeah, we were approaching this sort of area with the pick anyway. Honestly, Drake May fell a lot in our draft, which relatively speaking, it seemed like a lot of like our group wasn't really too high on Drake May. I really was. I still think there's upside there, and he does kind of have the not quite the same. He doesn't pose the same like sort of like physically imposing dual threat that Josh Allen does, but it's kind of the Josh Allen conundrum where there is like in terms of size, the arm strength, the physical gifts are there. It's just so much inconsistency. He's shown a few flashes in college where he has looked to be fantastic, and then there's some like bewildering stuff that really makes you question everything when you really dig into like the bad portions of the film. As much as there is 100% still a pretty high upside there, that is probably a situation I would want to stay away from, especially when you consider the relative lack of overwhelming receiving talent in New England right now.
So where are you going at the 4? You're going 2-4. Who's your pick?
2-4. I mean, eh, still once again, if he's there, if you're in the dynasty, JJ McCarthy still not a bad pick there. I really like for this year, because I'll be the first one to, once again, coming back to the Oregon versus Washington game. Bo Nix is in a great situation. He's in a really good situation. If you need a quarterback for this year, especially, and all that you really have to pull from is going to be either rookies or the slim pickings in whatever your league has left. Bo Nix is a really good option here to kind of bolster you for the very least a year. He's 100% won the QB1 battle in Denver at this point, and he still has relatively high upside for the future. But definitely going to be a good pick here. Um, Other than that, I probably still wouldn't bite on any running backs just yet. Um, Maybe
So
if
you're
you can
taking
break
Bo Nix
into,
here. You
I
think Bo
would
Nix is the best value you could get at the
really and
spot?
truly, I think the best value there is probably Bo Nix. He's offering a lot this year, and then hopefully for in the future too. That's probably going to be your best value there.
All right, so we get that pick, which I can't disagree. I still
It
think
could
that
be a
these,
little bit. It's a bit of a mild take. I think that's really safe. Everybody wants to pick the quarterback. That's just how it works.
yeah, I think that we're having a lot of defensive talent slide.
Slide.
Um, but I think at 4-4, or sorry, 2-4, we're talking of Bo Nix there, which I don't disagree with. The next three picks are going to be Benson in Arizona, which I don't hate that quarterback or that running back
That
situation. He's
situation.
going to
But
be behind
there's a
James
few
Conner,
other, yeah. But
but yeah, there's
he could.
there's other running backs I like better. I also don't like taking a running back. This running back class seems weak to me. Looking
Mhm.
at the board across the way, we do a 5 round for our league, and all these running backs that were drafted are definitely questionable, and I feel like most of them are throwaway
There's a
picks.
bunch of throwaway picks in there with a lot of like the running backs that you could take within this draft. There's a few that slid later on into the draft that I think actually do pose some pretty good value, but we'll revisit that when we get to it.
Yes. So we're looking at the 2-5 going Benson. You looking at the 2-6 of Ricky Pearsall, which is my dark horse. I talked a little bit about that in the offensive draft. We are
Hmm.
looking at 2-7 going Brian Thomas in Jacksonville. Love that pick. And then here we go with another defensive lineman off the board with Latu at 2-8. And then here we are with 9, which this is a clear-cut pick for me of I am choosing Chop Robinson as the only person still in my tier 1 potential first rounders. And if you did that, I would not blink. I'm getting at 2-9, which I think is absolute mayhem. And I think one thing that we have to realize is for our
Where did
listeners,
where
he
did he
ended
go
up
within our draft?
he ended up going the 2-13, which is 4-3 in the context of what we're
Oh
talking about
wow.
now.
Yeah.
And that actually, I was going to draft him at the 3-9,
Hmm.
but I ended up with Cooper because I need a tackling linebacker. So I chose who I thought would be the best linebacker for that because my defensive line I had bolstered in the offseason and last season. Um, but Chop was highly contended at 2-9. I was, or 3-9 in the context of this. But I'm going to take Chop at 119. And the overall, we're not really looking at your team's needs. We're just talking about overall value right now. And I think Chop Robinson is absolutely a steal at 2-9. Um, so
Yeah.
that is
No.
my whole
That's
first tier.
absolutely.
Yeah. I think my whole first tier is off. And I think with that comment too, I think that's also very important for listeners to like really dive into is that yes, we're talking about pure value, but especially when you're talking about defensive, you have your quarterback position, you have your running back position, you have wide receivers, you have flex, tight end, which is all normal, defense, kickers, you have all this super normal. We don't have defense in this league, and instead we have linebackers, defensive linemen, secondary, and IDPs. So you are looking at 10 different positions rather than 5. So when you sit down and you're looking at your rookie draft, yes, it is important to put your overall value, but it is also important to see what your team needs because depending on how big your team is, a normal 12-man league, it is very easy to fill in the gaps that you need with high talent, even if it seems like a
Hmm.
reach, but it's going to make your team better. I think that's very important to go into this draft with.
Yeah,
You
definitely
have
a
thoughts
good
on that?
side note. Yeah, 100% want to highlight the fact that what that while we're discussing, um, not everyone's going to be doing the same thing. Obviously, people are, but our league sets aside individual defensive players, whereas relatively most don't. Um, it's there's we've talked about it for a while. I think there's a lot of value in this draft. Um, you would not be um you would not be amiss. There's still going to be don't look past the first round of talent in this year's rookie draft. Just be like, the big guys are up there because there is a lot that is probably going to surprise some people come the regular season.
So, continuing our draft is we have the Drake May at 2-2 or 210. Do not hate. This
Don't
one's
hate that.
questionable.
That's good value.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's just
oh
straight up
God,
value.
questionable is a good way to put that.
3-1 is a questionable pick. Um, the person who made this claims, and I hope he listens to this, claims that he is the best wide receiver farm in our league. And when you look at his team, it is the island of misfit toys. That is a term that I used in the offensive draft for New England's wide receiver group, but I'm going to use it for this guy's fantasy team. That his wide receivers is the land of misfit toys. Wyatt is the land of broken toys. This dude's is
Oh,
the island of misfit toys. They're youthful, but only so much. So Ben Sinnott went the 3-1,
which
and then
which
you
he's not
have
bad, but
Vidal. He's
ugh,
not bad. There's a ton of talent on the table that like I want, and I make fun of him. But listen, situation is always situation. That is not a bad pickup. I think he has
no,
potential to be Q or tight end one in this league, over Brock Bowers in this draft rather.
it's
Um,
entirely
tight
possible,
end one, just
especially
based
from
off
a
of
receiving perspective.
situation. Yeah,
Hmm.
just based off of
For
situation,
this,
I think Benson it might be in a better situation. This next one was very questionable in the draft was Vidal in the Chargers. I would like to point out that this happened before. Didn't the Chargers draft someone else? Who is it? Who's the Chargers? Oh no, I was thinking. Sorry, I was thinking of the Rams. So they got
yeah.
Vidal out of the Chargers, which I think that there's a ton of talent elsewhere. I think that if you're throwing away these third round picks, I think that you need to sit down with defense more. Which after this draft, there are some defensive players that I do want to draft that or talk about that I
Hmm.
feel like is sliding. Um,
Especially in ours.
yeah, especially well in our conversation that we're having today of the mock draft of only 3 rounds. There's definitely some defensive stuff that I want to touch on that's happening later that I think people should definitely be taking in early rounds of our drafts. So we have linebacker Colson goes to 3. Um, Once again, I think that there's
Better
uh,
options at that spot,
options.
even honestly at that position.
That being said, I think he's going to be a solid linebacker.
I think he's gonna be a solid linebacker.
You are talking about a great defense that he is going to be in position to make tackles, which is what's going to get you points, which is what's going to win you championships, and we are going to hoist those trophies at the end of the year. But we have 3, 4, and this is all Wyatt. So who is Wyatt going to take? Because uh, this spot in our league was very questionable, especially at the time. So
Uh, so this that's the truth. So this is the point where I really start to consider what um, defensive talent is available. If you can grab stuff that has slid to like the third-ish round in your league, you're going to be very happy. I have I've said it this because this once again this was my actual pick. I don't want to be too biased because there's a few other options here that I think are really good. Um, one of them being T'Vondre Sweat, who I think you got Voj, who honestly I wouldn't be too mad. He's going to be a a tackle for loss machine. He is going to be disrupting a lot. He's just a big body. He's going to make a huge difference on that Tennessee offense. They lost a few. They lost a few positions that otherwise would have been retaining similar value, within like Danico Autry. That I wouldn't hate that at all. I really, it's is it a little bit I do like Kool-Aid McKinstry. I think he is probably going to get thrown at a lot in the situation that he is in, and might surprise some people with the way that he is able to play positionally. Um, but my kind of waffling around here. My true pick is Jared Verse. He was straight away in my like the first tier of pass rushers for me within this draft. I think he is a physical specimen. Is relatively gifted with his first step. His finesse moves can be a little bit shaky. At times he looks like he's very good at reading that first jump. Then other times, in a few games throughout college, he's kind of been shut down by some really skilled linemen. Uh, Not really my focus within like analyzing uh, the play at the line, but Jared Verse is speaking with outside of some like specific matchups is I think going to be extremely productive on an offense that is going to or sorry on a defense that's going to surprise a lot of people this year.
I love that pick. I'll go ahead and say it right now. So my tier one on like when I looked at this offensive defensive rookie draft, we talked about earlier. My tier two is Roma Doomsday, Brock Bowers, Lad McConkey, Keon Coleman. The only defensive lineman that made my tier two is Jared Verse. I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely love this pick. He's going to be the Aaron Donald replacement. Is he going to have a career like Aaron Donald? No, I don't think anyone's going to be able to have a career like Aaron Donald, but
No,
he is going to
but
score you points.
I do want to highlight as well. There is another person who's also another person from Florida State, who is also going to be featured on that exact same Los Angeles Rams line, and that's in Braden Fisk. We'll talk about him later. He's probably not worth picking up until a little bit later. Just speaking in terms of the roles that they play and how that contributes towards fantasy points in most leagues, with Jared Verse probably going to be producing more by volume, uh, more sacks. But the combination of those two and the chemistry that they displayed in college with kind of just dismantling and targeting um, specific people or specific spots within the line that they're facing is definitely going to, while it won't be Aaron Donald, is about as close as you can get from two rookie contributors.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I will say going into it, you already did your pick. I absolutely love your pick. My tier three of
But
this draft, which I think is what we really need to talk about,
mhm,
is we had all the stud wide receivers off the board. The tight ends, which I'll get into. Ben Sinnott did make my tier three, so I was bashing that pick, but I actually don't absolutely hate that pick. I just think that it was out of
it
order
was
in the
it
beginning.
was a little bit, yeah.
Uh, my tier three is defensive line heavy. I have one linebacker, one DB, and I have Ben Sinnott. I also want to add Kool-Aid into the mix, and I also want to add Cooper DeJean into the mix.
Okay.
But it's Brandon Fisk, Javonte Sweat, Edgerkin Cooper, Javon Bullard, Cooper DeJean, Kool-Aid McKinstry, and Ben Sinnott is my tier three. So if we go through this draft, we're looking at the 3-5 Xavier Legette. Don't hate that if you need a wide receiver.
No
3-6, you're looking at
personality.
Jermaine Burton. I absolutely love Jermaine Burton. I'm gonna quote Ryan here with Legette. Is Legette someone you want to get behind? I know that's not why you dropped him in fantasy, but he is someone you want to get
But
behind, and he's gonna make your fantasy football fun to
he's going
watch.
to give you a fun fantasy football experience. I don't care. I don't
And
hate the pick just out of the entertainment value.
I will say the one downside to drafting Leggett, if we're talking about him being a fun guy to like do, that means that you're going to watch the absolute
He's watching Carolina
dumpster
Panthers for the next
fire,
year.
the absolute dumpster fire that's Bryce Young. What they're doing to that young man is absolutely diabolical. And it is just one of those things that I couldn't drop Leggett because I would have to watch that offense, which say it how you will, that is not something I want to do. But
No.
Leggett goes 3-5, Jermaine Burton goes 3-6, potential wide receiver 2 for Joe Burrow in the future. I do not hate at all. And then we did have Jared Verse in our draft go the 2-7 with Wyatt drafting him. We're just gonna switch the spots. That Johnson out of New York, the Giants, the tight end, was drafted at 3-7, which I think is very questionable for him to go that early. Like I said, teams will draft
Yeah.
for their roster, but I think value wise that is way too early. And then we're looking at Corley out of the Jets going 3-8. At 9, I am, like I said, my tier 3, you still have Brandon Fisk on the table. Devontae Sweat, I am very high with. I drafted him. I was able to get him in our, when
Yeah.
did I take? In our third round. I got him
Pretty
at
good.
3-7, which is equivalent to 5-7. This draft that we're talking. We're in a 20-man league is
Hmm.
what this mock draft is based off of. Um, and then I ended up drafting Edgerkin Cooper here. I think you could go Javon Bullard. Javon Bullard preseason snaps, and even before the preseason started, knew that with the Jeff Hasley defense and having McKinney in backfield, that there was going to be a safety that plays in the box slash slot. And Javon Bullard was drafted exactly for that reason. He is going to be someone in the secondary that is going to be flying all over the place. He is going to get the ball thrown. He can create an island, and they're still going to throw them the ball because he is going to be playing inside. This is not one of those things that I'm worried about a Jair Alexander. I'm not worried about a Stephon Gilmore. I'm not worried about these top Jalen Ramsey. I'm not worried about these guys. These are guys I am staying away from in fantasy because their name is way too big. If you're going to try to trade for him, way too big. If you have them, try to trade him away for the name only because they don't get points because no one throws them. They create islands, and that does not translate to fantasy points. So I'm looking for slot corners, and I think a slot safety might be better than a slot corner. And I think we're going to see that a lot more often this season. Watching a lot of teams seem to be doing 3 deep, 1 safety sets, at least in the preseason. We'll see how that translates. It's been translating to these 2 deep safeties to force teams to really grind out on offense. But I think we're going to start seeing a lot more aggressive defense with all these pass rush talents. There's a lot of great rotational lines in the NFL now. I think if the defense gets more aggressive, we're going to see a lot of turnovers on the offensive side of the ball or a lot of scoring. So um, either or, and it's up to the offensive coordinator at this point. But at 2-9, I think I'm going to stick to what I drafted with Edgerton Cooper just because he's in my tier list, and that's how we had it. And we're going to end the draft with Marshawn Lloyd being drafted at 310. So, draft just ended. Wyatt, who are you going and picking up immediately off of the free agent list?
Off of off the free agent list, who's really had some rising stocks this year?
I'm talking like from this draft, from like the
From
rookies. Like
this,
the rookie draft just ended. Who are you? Who's your undrafted rookie free agents?
in terms of this,
Yeah,
so a few that we're looking at that I think if if they go undrafted, um, if you're in need of a tight end, Cade Stover is one I'd look towards just as kind of more of a. I don't think he's going to be that high upside, but as sort of a band-aid position for maybe contributing for like out from 1 year from now. Um, he and CJ Stroud had a relatively good connection in college. That's absolutely why they took him, um, which
Where did
is
CJ Stroud go to
really
college?
what?
Where did CJ Stroud go to college?
I don't know, Voj. Where did CJ Stroud go to college? It
I feel like
seems
he
like you
came from
know.
a pretty like. Didn't he come from a pretty irrelevant college for quarterbacks?
Yeah, one that's definitely contributed a few quarterbacks in the NFL at some point.
He went to the same
Now,
school as Justin Fields, right? The flop
yeah, I wonder which
of
one
a
that could be.
Bears quarterback.
Yeah, the
That's right. They lost Joe
esteemed
Burrow
Bears.
because they weren't good.
Hmm.
What is it? Ohio?
Yeah, it's definitely something
I
within
don't
that
trust
state.
I don't trust Ohio QB. So whatever about you
Yeah.
say after that is not a take that I would take with
So
any.
I think the culture that's going on within Houston is probably going to be a boon for him within the near future. Maybe not going to be the best tight end in this draft. Um, if you're really sore for the position, probably not a bad pickup. One that we have not touched on too much, which was a surprisingly good pick, was Byron Murphy, who is shaping out to be a machine for Seattle. Everything that I've seen so far has looked fantastic, not going to lie. Um, some others that I really think are going to be notable is I hate to say it, Will Shipley is a really weird and niche one. Not like anything crazy, but he's probably the most talented pass catching running back in this draft class, which as of right now doesn't hold too much value for his team, but is a pretty it's a niche thing to hold on to. Wouldn't be too upset about picking that up, at the very least to stash for a while. Oh, how could I? Okay, surprisingly, still, um,
Yeah, I guess I'll
I
go through
have to
some of
posit
mine real
Bucky Irving
quick.
too,
I
though.
already talked about my tier three that a lot of them went undrafted. Go ahead. You
Hmm.
have one more.
No, no, no. I'm just he's probably shaping up to be the RB2 in Tampa Bay, and
Here, hold on.
Bucky Irving.
Why you're like in and out right now.
Oh, was it the
We just lost Wyatt. Let's see if we
doesn't
can
seem
get
like
him
my
back.
doesn't seem like my earphone should be the problem.
Hey, he's back. There we go.
Okay, can you hear now?
Hey, can you hear me? Yeah, I can
Yeah.
hear you.
Okay.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead with your pick, and we'll cut this out. That's fine.
Oh no, no, yeah. Just kind of wanted to quickly throw another running back in the mix who I would hold on to, and that's Bucky Irving in Tampa Bay. Probably, it seems like the Bucks might be leaning a little bit away from putting a lot of like the workload onto Rashad White. So I'd look to see him um, being a relatively steady contributor, not incredibly high upside. There's potential there, but as far as situations go, definitely going to hold a bit of value.
All right, so I'm gonna go through some of mine that I think that are very valuable for people to know, especially in rookie drafts slash undrafted free agents that we did not touch in this podcast, and why it didn't just join or didn't. Sorry, I'm reading. You just joined
Didn't
on my
already.
screen. That why it didn't touch on is I'm just gonna go down my top 30 prospect list, which didn't include my tier one because of my draft position that we talked about. So this is top 35, um, top 35 that weren't touched. Is Will Richard, the kicker from Minnesota, won the starting position in Minnesota, and the dude has a leg. I think that that is someone that people need to be watching out for, and if you can grab him, you just secured your next You're next Justin Tucker for the next century. Decade. Not century. Decade.
No. Let's leave it the way it was.
And then this one is something that I'm going to get heat for. This dude is just special. Go watch his tape. He is going to be the next Luke Kuechly for Carolina. Is Trevin Wallace out of Kentucky. Just watch his tape. Trust me, this kid has something in a sweet division to develop, and he has the linebacking coach to do it. I think Quentin Mitchell is a great pick here too. And then a couple of other kind of like
Love Daniel Mitchell. I will also highlight, because we kind of touched on him, but passing over how good of a pick Malachi Corley was. Um, he has his story's really cool. The dude just plays with a lot of heart. I think he's going to end up getting a lot of targets. He's probably going to be matched up against relatively, um,
low
he's
tier.
probably going to be. Yes, and he's going to be every so often switching, not covering in the slot, but is probably going to be involved there, and that's something you definitely like to see from a secondary contributor in fantasy anyway.
For sure. And then I would like to end it with two people with NFL bloodlines that I think are a great, an absolutely great dynamic investment. I do not think that they're going to be relevant this year. I do not think that they're going to be relevant next year, but if you can store them on your taxi squad, I think that Brandon Rice and Luke McCaffrey are great dynamic investments. That's exactly my analysis on them. Is that I think that they're going to be, both players are going to be playing out of the outfield. They're going to try to be these gadget players, and we all know how gadget players end up in the NFL. But every once in a while, they pop off. And I think having these two as a potential investment, especially with NFL heritage, is not a bad idea. If you can afford it, you have the space on your taxi, and you are not in need for a wide receiver or any other position. If you are drafting them, draft for your team, not your future value, or draft for your game plan, as Dynasty has many different game plans, and to each their own. I like to win now, so maybe this isn't my kind of investment. I might be a little bit more bullish, but that's my take. Anything else you would like to add, Wyatt?
No, I don't hate it. Honestly, especially like I really don't mind what I've seen from so far. It's really not been. I really have not minded it. Maybe touch on Joe Milton, who's looked surprisingly mobile in New England, is genuinely giving like the Drake May some controversy over there. But that's about all else I feel like I have to highlight. Maybe we brushed over Nate Wiggins, who I also think is going to be really solid. Terrion Arnold is another person that I really like as far as he's going to, I think, end up being really involved as a ball hawk like 1 year from now. That's about all.
Cool. I think with that, guys, we're going to wrap it up here. I want to thank all of you guys for listening. Follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at
Oh
Dynasty
God.
Depot. And yeah, go say hi to Kilger over there. I said in the other episode, Kilger is running our X account now, formerly known as Twitter.
Please keep him
And
as friends.
yeah, give him something to do. He would love to be able to be part of these, but unfortunately at this time isn't able to commit to the
He has a
podcast, which is completely
commitment.
fine. But he is always a fun time to talk to. So go over there, Twitter. I'm not allowed to run the Twitter account, so he's running the
Yeah,
Twitter account. So
for good reason.
we're we're running with that. And guys, thank you guys for listening, and can't wait to tune in for the next one. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next podcast next week. It should be a startup mock draft. I'll see you guys then. Peace.